statins in the drinking water.
Well, cholesterol reducers, right?
Yeah.
But again, if somebody wants to go to his doctor and say, look, I want to lower my cholesterol and I think statins work, put me on a prescription, that's their choice. But, they shouldn't be forced to take it.
Well, I hate to bring this up because it sounds as if it could be taken as rather insulting. But the Nuremberg Code, which was developed in 1946 in the wake of the awful experiments that the Nazis did on patients and the inmates of the concentration camps, produced this Nuremberg Code. And it lays down very clearly what human experiments you're allowed to do, what you have to do to have a human experiment. And the answer is you've got to have the person's consent to do a human experiment. Well, is fluoridation an experiment? Well, the National Research Council laid out all the research areas that would need to be done. There's a huge research gaps, they say, in fluoridation. Huge research gaps, and they say you should do this, you should do that, you should do that. The same with the Medical Research Council in England. You should do this study, you should do that study. And in Australia, you should do this study. I mean, that is tantamount to admitting, if you're going to saying there are research gaps, we need to do more research, you're saying this is an experiment. And if it's an experiment, then you have to have the individual's consent, and they don't have it.
All right, Bill, and you were going to talk about 2 more points of the downside.
Yeah,
of fluoride.
I want to expound a little bit more on Paul's IQ, not your personal IQ, Paul, but the IQ.
I'm sure that's off the charts.
Damage caused by fluoride, excess ingestion of fluoride. I ranked the states, 50 states, United States, with the least amount of people that are fluoridated, ranked on up to the most number of people fluoridated, and then I charted in mental retardation, and we measure that in the schools fairly well, of how many children in the schools, what percentage of the children in schools are mentally retarded. And the states that have more fluoridation have double the amount of mental retardation. We know that IQ is going down the more fluoride we get, and the amount of fluoride we're getting is increasing a significant amount. Now, those putting fluoride in the water will say, oh, no, that's unproven, that's unproven, that's unproven. But one area that we all agree on is dental fluorosis. Fluoride in water increases the prevalence of dental fluorosis. Now, those promoting fluoridation will say, but that's just a cosmetic problem. Well, my response is, okay, let me take my key and go to the hood of your car and scratch the hood of your car. Remember, it's just cosmetic, right?
Yeah.
The car will run just as well. But cosmetic damage is damage. And when you look at cosmetic dentists around, you'll find lots of cosmetic dentists around, and some of them are making some of their living treating dental fluorosis. So it's not like there isn't some profit in this. And fluoride treatments in the dental office can be $30,000 to $100,000 a year for dentists, and it goes on and on and on. So dental fluorosis can increase the cost of dentistry. But one other point, when we're looking and comparing dental expenses, how much does the average person pay in this community for dentistry, and you compare the fluoridated and the non-fluoridated areas, you would expect to see a huge reduction in dental decay in the fluoridated communities. What do we find? Nothing. There's no benefit. We don't find it. Now, there's one study that says, well, there's a 0.5% benefit. Well, the people promoting fluoridation claim that there's a 15 to 40% decay reduction in fluoridated communities, not a 0.5%. And when you look at the study carefully, that 0.5% really is cherry-picked on the data. There's no significant difference between one group or the other group. We have tons of computers. We have everybody's dental records on computers, and yet they don't publish any information, hardly at all, on the difference in dental expenses in fluoridated and non-fluoridated areas, because dental expenses don't go down in fluoridated communities. When you stop fluoridating water, it doesn't go up. That makes no difference. Countries in Europe, all around, they all have the same amount of decay.
When I was a kid, Bill, my mother would rush us to the dentist all the time. She was obsessed with having good teeth.
Good for her.
But she also jumped on everything that was new. And in the 50s, she got a notice one day when I was in school, and it said, a dentist is coming to the classes, and we're going to do what is a new procedure called fluoridation. And we're going to bring little Georgie out of class with your permission. You got to pay for this. And the dentist is going to do a week's treatment of fluoride. And I was on that list, Bill and Paul, and I'd go in as a kid, as others would, and there was a dentist shooting fluoride into our mouths. I remember that. It was horrible.
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
God knows how much we were getting into our system then.
Too much, for sure. But there wasn't as much fluoride in other things. Right now, we have a huge increase. As a nutritionist, this is one of my big concerns, is that back in the 50s, we didn't have fluoride antibiotics. We didn't have fluoride toothpaste. We didn't have all these other
mouthwash, everything.
Dental products, mouthwashes and everything. We didn't have post-harvest fumigants. We didn't have pesticides. All of these are fluoride products that increase our exposure, increase our dosage, increase the amount of fluoride that we're getting into our bodies, and it just seems endless, where they're adding more and more and more, and no one is saying, hey, we're getting too much. Where should we start reducing fluoride? And in my opinion, fluoride is a wonderful chemical, but it shouldn't be ingested. And so we at least need to give people the freedom of choice to go and get their fluoride from other sources if they want to swallow it. For example, reading the toothpaste tube, it says drug facts. The drug with the intention to treat is fluoride. And it says use a pea-size amount, and if you swallow more than that pea-size amount, contact the Poison Control Center. How much fluoride is in that pea-size amount of fluoridated toothpaste? About 1/4 milligram, the same as 1 glass of fluoridated water. Now, if it's not safe in the fluoride toothpaste, how can an industrial waste product pumped into water be safe for us? And we're supposed to drink more than 1 glass of water.
I got to tell you, when I buy toothpaste, it's without fluoride.
Yeah, good for you.
You know, how do we know? By the way, can fluoride harden arteries and things like that?
Well, fluoride is attracted to the calcium hydroxyapatite, which is the mineral in teeth and bones. And by the same token, if any tissue is calcifying,
your arteries calcify.
Yeah, then the fluoride is going to go there like a magnet. Same with things like kidney stones. The fluoride is going to go to that place as a magnet. It's a sort of chicken and egg situation. Does the fluoride help to precipitate this calcium hydroxyapatite? Does it kind of catalyze the formation of these deposits, or is it after the event that the calcification takes place and then the fluoride goes there? But one of the things that the National Research Council report said in their report is that the formation of kidney stones may be the most sensitive endpoint of fluoride toxicity.
My gosh. Now, is fluoride in every major drinking source around this country?
170 million people drink fluoridated water in the United States.
2 out of 3.
Yeah, it's incredible. And that's about half the number of people worldwide. Most countries do not fluoridate. 98% of Europeans do not drink fluoridated water. France, Germany, Austria, Belgium, Portugal, Italy, Switzerland, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, Luxembourg. All of those countries don't fluoridate. And yet their teeth are just as good, according to World Health Organization data, as the countries which do fluoridate. I'd like, if I could, George, go back to what I consider to be the great fluoridation gamble.
Let's do that when we come back,
okay.
Paul, right after the break. Give us a website, Paul, if you would.
Fluoridealert.org. Fluoridealert.org.
All right, very good. And when we come back, we'll continue our special report on fluoride in our drinking water, in our toothpaste. It's all over the place. Last hour of the show, we'll open up the phone lines. You can chat with Bill and Paul and maybe even relate a story or two. We'll be back.